Alex, hi, good to have you with us. How have you been?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Alex. It's good to have you with us. I've been, I usually say this for all of my sessions, right? But I'm really excited about this session, thrilled about this session, for a variety of reasons, right? I think the way, 2020 has been a very difficult year, right? COVID for the world has been a very difficult year, but it's just transitioned us as an economy, right, in a phenomenal way. We've become information first, right? Globally, we've become information first, right? Because of the lockdowns and a variety of other things that we experienced. Content became very, very important, right? The role of influencers became very important. And I think today we've gotten to a point where, how the impact of influence is really going to define how we consume, right? And brands today and businesses will have very little choice but not to, for example, engage, with right kind of influences, right? To communicate with their consumers. And also this impacts their CAC, right? Because there's also been a global liquidity event, mechanics digital, of acquiring customers in a digital environment have gone through the roof, right? Influencers come in a way where, you can very smartly, sustainably create a relationship with your consumers, right? Helps you communicate at a very different level.
Exactly.
It's not very clinical at many levels, right? So, like I said, right, this becomes a very exciting conversation with all of this in context put together. But before we do that, Alex, I'd love you to give us a quick round of an introduction to yourself, and we jump into the conversation from there.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And everything you said is definitely on point. So yeah, I'm Alex. I'm the founder of Promoty. We're an influencer marketing tech company based out of Estonia, where we're mainly operating in the Nordics and the Scandinavia region, but recently also expanded to India.
Right. Interesting. That was a quick one, right? I would want some more details around it, but through the conversation as we talk. Now, Alex, I'd love you to give us a breakdown of Promoty, right? There are many influencer platforms that have come up globally.
Yeah.
In India, also we have many influencer platforms that have come up. There are agencies that have come up, right? There are models that have come up which are, managing and mapping the impact of, for example, influencers in the market, right? I'd love you to give us a breakdown of what is Promoty, one, and what differentiates you from what's in the market.
Yeah, exactly. So as you explained as well, influencers are becoming more and more important, and each influencer has, they have amazing reach when you compare them to traditional outlets, and when you put them all together, they can even be bigger than all of advertising. But right now, there's nothing out there, no technology that manages it. Essentially, that where you can understand how to get these influencers, how to manage the processes. It's very difficult because there's a lot of one-to-one relationships that you need to maintain, and when you start to scale that, it becomes very, very complicated. So what we are doing is we're making that less complicated. So in a way, if you think about CRMs, we're kind of like a IRM, influencer relationship management company. So we have a full stack technology all the way from finding the influencers, managing the relationships, doing the payments. And what we really like to focus on is, as you mentioned as well, that influencers shape the consumer opinion a lot. And what is the best influencer to have is your happy customer, right? You have already a consumer that loves your stuff, but they also have a very good audience. And if you use them, that's what we call a super fan. And what we're really focusing on and educating marketers about is trying to find and use that type of influencer, because they have the most authentic and honest views about the product or service that they're promoting, and thus creating the best CAC as well.
Interesting. Now, Alex, when we talk about the influencer ecosystem, right, especially what we've seen in the last 2 years, what has also happened is there is a certain, sense of, I think the consumers have started to understand that there are a lot of activities that the influencers are doing which are commercial in nature, right? And the impact of influence, while the impact of content is very, very high, the impact of influence is something which is going down, right? Now, this is a trend that we are seeing across the board. Right, we're seeing it in the global markets, we're seeing it in India markets, right? Where anything which is done with the intention of or a commercial engagement, right, or a commercial outcome, the impact of it is kind of decreasing, right? What's your sense of it? So, does that so one, of course, I would want you to comment on the larger macro that's there. What I would want to understand second is that, within the IRM, the engine that you, for example, built, right, in Promoty, what you're doing, right? Is this a dynamic engine of sorts that you've built where, I as a brand owner, as a business owner, continue to have a variety of options, right? Where you are, constantly tracking the behavior of the set of these people who follow me, right? This base of potential target customers, right? Do you do that also in your core offering? I'd love to understand these two aspects.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right that when people do collaborations with just commercial intent, that's going down. Nobody likes ads. Nobody wants to see ads, and that's why influencer marketing is already better, because they're not simply ads. There's also the person, and people trust the person. And since it's been saturated a little bit with commercial offerings, then that's why also it's moving into a more targeted space where authenticity plays the biggest role. And with authenticity, the higher it is, the higher the trust, and there the phenomenon is actually the opposite. So the trust is becoming bigger, and people are actually following other influencers for recommendations because they believe in what they're saying and they actually want to consume that content. But just in a traditionally way to say paid off posts that just blatantly promote something, that's definitely something that doesn't work out too well. So and on the other part, so we don't essentially monitor the influencers' behavior and the followers and how they engage, because it's very, very difficult to access this data, and also in the end it's very difficult to know in the end what works and what doesn't. We've seen cases where there are two pretty much equal profiles and demographics and statistics on audience, and then one person brings 50 sales, another one brings 2 sales, and there's just no way to know how their audience reacts, right, until you try. So a very important thing in influencer marketing is like experimental budget and trying out these different profiles and seeing how they act, and only then you know. So what we do is really we want to provide a set of tools for marketers to do that, and then as they use it, we learn, and then we're able to automate some processes that are maybe difficult for them.
Super. Now, Aleks, that's a very important point that you've highlighted in the conversation, right? Now, one of the things that I also understand is, is that with now, the mediums that we have, right? They're just so much more dynamic. Everybody's creating a lot of content, right? Influencers who hold very large follower bases also are becoming very very quickly redundant, right? And their content doesn't necessarily make impact, right? The followers also want a lot of new content, right? A lot of new genres, a lot of new, say, variety expressions, all of that, right? Now, what is happening in the process is that the overall pool of influencers is expanding very, very fast, right? Like I said, everybody is getting into that kind of game, right? And some are qualifying where they're very, very impactful, right? Now, from a brand standpoint, discovery of a lot of these, newer additions becomes just so much more important, right? Because of a variety of reasons. One, this freshness and content. The take, for example, is just so much more relevant, right? Because they're closer to the situation, the experiences, some of these challenges, right? And also that they come in at a slightly cheaper engagement rate from a brand standpoint, right?
Yep.
Do you also help brands identify such upstarts in certain ways? The newer additions in the process, because from a followership from that kind of a standpoint, they're still not there. They've not made the cut, right? But could be great micros to possibly say put money in investing, right? And the growth there could be phenomenal. Do you help discovery of such new additions in the base as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have that capability in our discovery module, and as you mentioned as well, that's a very good segment to use, because they're up and coming. They have usually in the beginning they have extremely authentic content. It's not diluted too much, and with brands, there's no point to ever force the square into a round hole when you're trying to do marketing and try to use the next cool thing. But you should use what is most close to you, like content that actually matches with your branding as well. Sometimes brands make the mistake of trying to write everything that's popular, but it's a matter of finding that maybe even the micro accounts that match you perfectly, rather than going for the macros that don't, basically.
Interesting. Aleks, one thing that I also want to understand, right? Now, when you have these influencers on your stack, right? Which I, as a brand owner, can look at and can engage with further, right? How does the relationship play out post event, right? So, for example, is there a certain weightage that you do to the transactional output that has happened with the brand, to the overall ranking and rating of the influencers, or that does not necessarily, you do not really sort of emphasize it too much, right? Because an influencer could possibly do or be less effective for brand A, but could be supremely effective for brand B, right? And putting that ranking weighting could just dilute their the outcome, right? And their potential. Is that a fair understanding, or do you rank and rate, and do you map their output over a period of time? and the resonance of the content that they create with their follower base?
Yeah, so that's a very good point, that it's very difficult to rank and rate them, because exactly the case where one profile might work perfectly for one brand and bring 50 results, and another one it would bring 2, then we would like lower their rank. But it doesn't matter that they were bad, it's just a mismatch with the audience and the messaging. So we don't rank them like that, but we have like a rating system. So we more grade and rate how it is to work with them, because influencers are basically one-person media companies, and you want to have a professional service, but some of them have come to success very quickly in a year or 2, and maybe they didn't have any like professional business experience before, so their business culture experience is maybe not that mature yet for that relationship with maybe a big multinational company. So the rating there helps understand how professional somebody is, and the more professional they are, the less headache it is for you to manage those many one-to-one communications that you have with influencers.
Super. Now, Aleks, Promoty is based out of Estonia, right?
Yeah.
You've been catering to a lot of European countries, right? Tell us a little more about that. How has that phase of your journey been? And now you're entering India, right? With a partnership here in India. On the ground, I'd love to understand, your journey, in Europe as a plan, and now India. What are the plans for India?
Yeah, exactly. So in the beginning, we started in Estonia, and we actually had an idea to just do a local platform, but then we got a little bit carried away on the whiteboard and saw that we can do something better here. And then we decided to do a local approach where we actually expand from country to country, because if we become the local face and do things local way, then we have a lot better chance of penetrating the market and creating more value for the brand. So that's what we did after some years. We've also raised up to 1.7 million euros right now to do our expansions, and we've entered first Finland and Latvia. And in every country we have a playbook that we enter with that helped us get viral in the beginning and get the first base of few thousand users, and then proceed from there. So it's been a very fun journey. And now with India, we have a very good joint venture program that we're doing with some local marketing high heavyweight people that have been in the industry for a long time. And we just launched actually last week, and we already have like 4 campaigns up and running, and a couple of hundred influencers with very high and high quality audiences. So it's very exciting, and I believe India is a huge, very good market that's at the right place at the right time, and there's a lot of value that can be created there.
Super. Aleks, influencer marketing in general, right? Is I believe in the future of the industry, right? I think it's just becoming so much more important, right? I think content creation in general is going to be so much more important. I think with all of this noise, institutionalization is going to become very important, right, in the process. But while I say that, right, what is also happening, the way I kind of see it is that, this industry is going to essentially head in 2 ways, right? One is going to be more institutionalized of sorts, which is going to command a premium because it's going to be just so much more thought through. There's going to be a lot of intelligence, there's going to be research teams which are going to come in play. And then there are going to be these independent content creators, right, who continue to qualify and fill the bucket that you are essentially chasing. Now, the fact of the matter is, as this base increases, right, as the followership sort of increases, there's more tracking, tracing that happens, right? A lot of this, what happens, right? A lot of these relationships will eventually get commoditized, right? We're in a fairly early stage, right? I think 2020 has really been in a year which is fast track that, adoption from a business standpoint, right? From an entrepreneur standpoint, from an owner standpoint, right? Eventually, a lot of this will get commoditized, right? It'll continue to be pertinent. It will continue to be, a reasonable portion out of the overall marketing expense that an organization does, but it will get commoditized, right? Which essentially means that there are going to be lower margins for intermediaries like yourself, right? The other thing is that, there is a lot more competition which is coming in, right? So there are 2 problems, right? One is the problem of choice, because there are going to be more choices, the prices are going to come down. There are going to be people who are going to be ready to offer services at much lower price and leaner price. And second is that there are a bunch of other players that have come into the market, right? In India, only there are at least 5, 6, 7 companies that have gotten funded, which are largely into influencer marketing, right? In some way or the other. Where they're essentially solving for discovery for brands, right? Something that you're also doing in your case, right? Now, none of these relationships are exclusive in nature, which just puts you in a very different kind of operating risk zone of sorts. How do you see that?
Yeah, it's true that it's a very like fast and rapidly growing, and it can get commoditized. But also it's very like in a way it's very platform agnostic, and the influencers they own their audiences, and they also have a limited scarcity of what they can like put in their feed on promotions. So what we've seen as well in Europe, it's quite interesting. In fact, that the prices should go down because there's so many of them and they're competing with each other, and there's lots more choice. But actually, it's an artificial feeling because the choice for a certain brand can be very limited, because what works for them specifically is a very specific subset. And even if there is a large choice out there, then the right choice is still small. So they're willing to pay more to just get those, because other brands might be competing for that same spot. And since it's better for them to have that spot, they might be willing to overpay and get in there. With regarding discovery and all these other like basic features, there's true that there's a lot of players out there, but we believe that the data that we can gather from sheer volume will eventually give us an advantage over understanding what are the best collaborations, and through the rating system as well. If we become the standard of who's a professional and who's not, then that's huge value for the influencers to have that rating, and huge value for marketers to know how it was to work with them before. That's the biggest time sink in influencer marketing, when you get somebody that doesn't meet deadlines and is difficult to work with, and that's something to solve.
Super. Aleks, I think no conversation could be complete, without asking a 2-year question, right? It's cliched, right? But I think it's just so much more important. What are the next 2 years like, right? I mean, you are in a very exciting market. Europe is definitely very, very exciting. Of course, I think every continent has its own troubles, right? But I think from an overall experiential standpoint, I think there is a lot of action which is happening there. India again is a very, very exciting market that you're in, right? I think the demographic given that we talk of, the aspirational class that we talk of, right? Those numbers are very, very thick, right? I call it the last billion people market. With the appetite is very large. So you're in two very exciting continents in areas. What are the next 2 years like, right? What is it that you've, for your team, what are the milestones that you've set for yourself?
Yeah, I really believe that we're very close to very fast accelerated growth. We're doing some final, adding the final pieces that we wanted in our vision, in our product to complete the influencer relationship management. Definitely integrations with a lot more social medias, and just basically scaling. We want to become the top player in all the countries that we're operating in, and also India, and then take on new countries one by one. And ideally, we want to be the biggest player in Asia and in Europe. Not sure we're going to make it there already in 2 years, but we'll definitely be on our way there. And right now we see that huge interest that's coming towards us and also in the market. So I believe that we can do it, and it's very exciting.
And are we going to see you in many more social media platforms, or
absolutely,
Instagram used to be the primary focus.
Yeah, Instagram is just a testing ground. We're going to in our principle, we're platform agnostic, because the influencer also doesn't is not bound to one social media. The influencer owns their audience. Wherever they go, the audience will follow, and we can add all the social media platforms in there over time, and switch them out as they become relevant or lose relevance. Super. So yeah. Lovely.
Aleks, what's your sense, right? I mean, which is the platform that you think is going to become just so much more relevant going forward? I mean, Instagram is doing wonders, right? I think the way it's kind of influencing people, the kind of impact that it has on people is phenomenal, right? There are a lot of small businesses, right? Literally a cottage industry that has come together, with Instagram in place, right? But what is your sense of it, right? Do you see emergence of, say a couple of other platforms that have come up and, which are not necessarily on the radar right now, but brands should look at, because they're creating equally good impact? What's your sense of it?
Yeah, I've heard of this new platform called Be Real that shows content about what you're doing on everyday life. I'm not sure how ready it is yet for brand consumption there, but the concept is that you just have to, at one certain time in the day, take a picture and show like the front and the back camera of where you are and what you're doing. And if you do it over many times, then people see that as well, and that you're not being real. And then you only see it if others post it as well. But I also believe that the biggest next thing has yet to be made. And I think in the next 3 or 4 years, this world is moving so fast that we'll see something completely new that pops up. because we have all the content types right now, that we have video, image, text.
Sure.
Now with TikTok and alternatives that have the music videos and reels in Instagram,
right.
There's going to be a new media type for sure that's going to come and make waves. I feel it's like just there, but not there yet. So looking forward to what that's
super. Aleks, last question in this conversation, right? Honestly, I would have wanted this conversation to go on, but I'm going to save some of it for our next chat, whenever we have it next, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully soon. Aleks, you're building a company in 2 continents, right? Europe is a very different market. Estonia is a very different country. India is a very, very different country, right? With its own nuances, challenges, cultural aspects, right? People, thoughts, aspirations, right? It's a very complicated set, right? If you were to put out any suggestion, advice for many founders who are looking to sort of expand into global markets, right? What would that be? Team is a critical constant, right? I think you're in a perfect position to answer that. You spent a reasonable amount of time in India, right? The key of it, right? I would love to end this conversation, as this being the last point. What suggestion would...
That's a very good question. It would be very difficult for me to just try to expand to India from just the Zoom and from Tallinn. So it's very, like, all cultures are so different, and when I was there a couple of months ago as well, I saw that I would have no chance to understand every nuance and everything that's going on locally. And luckily what we did, and what was a great idea by one of our investors as well, is that we got some very good local partners. We have Ishika and Yatish there on the ground who know everything, know the industry, know the marketing space, and then I don't have to worry about any part of that. I just worry about the technology being good, and they know exactly how the market works. So doing that global expansion, even in Scandinavia, when they're neighboring countries, that some things are different, and if you have somebody on the ground who knows what's different, what matters, then that makes the whole difference.
Super. So essentially what you're saying is, get a local partner, right? That helps you do it. Interesting.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Alex, thank you so much for doing this. It was a pleasure to have you with us. This one has been long in the making, right? We've been wanting to do it for some time now, but it's been an absolutely spectacular conversation, right? I think it's so good to see entrepreneurs like yourself, right, who believe in the the possibility that India has to offer, right, and are kind of now entering India, building these new partnerships, right, and making the market just so much more intelligent at many levels, right. I think this is possibly a very strong, solid movement, right, which just goes on to show and demonstrate the global possibility that India offers, right, from a standpoint of being a business destination, right. Personally, to me, it should stand as a top priority for many businesses, right. There are many businesses that are on the fence that are looking to do it, especially startups, right. But I think this is something which is phenomenal at many levels. We wish you all the very best, Aleks, for what you're doing for your India operations. We know there is a lot of excitement there with what you're doing, and we wish you, like I said, a lot of success for your India leg and overall global expansion. Thank you so much for doing this. Right? It was a pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks for having me. It was great.